what do you think? Can you guys share? What do you think some of the things that you learned from the past relationships that you've done differently in this one that have allowed you all to have that success that you're sharing with us today? Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
We'll get started right after this message.
If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to order Matthew's new book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at Amazon.com or visit Matthew's website, www.matthewphoffman.com. Again, that's Amazon.com or www.matthewphoffman.com. And now, back to the show.
In 2018, certified relationship coaches Seth and Crystal Karnes founded the Marriage on the Rocks podcast. After coming to the realization that maintaining good relationships does not demand hard work, the duo aimed to spread their message and assist others in their pursuit of a happy, prosperous, and effortless relationship. Through their podcast, they have established a platform for the discussion of the contemporary challenges and issues impacting relationships. To help create additional fun and enjoyment, they have integrated distinctive cocktails into the name of their podcast. Since 2010, this couple began working together and soon developed an unbreakable bond that transformed them not only into best friends, but life partners. Despite the challenges in each of their previous marriages, they've been able to develop a fresh understanding and deep admiration for one another. Seth and Crystal are now devoted to helping other couples to successfully maneuver their own relationships. Welcome back to the Kickass Couples Podcast. We are excited to have guests who are coming from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. The first time we've had Oklahomans with us, and we are talking with Seth and Crystal Karnes today about what it means to be kick-ass. So thanks for joining us today, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I'm so glad you said Oklahomans and not Okies.
Okies. Oh, well, I didn't. That's obviously something you don't like to hear, I guess.
Oh, it's just that's usually where people go. The Okie from Muskogee thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. I won't go there, I promise. So we love to start off by asking everybody. I'd like to hear from each of you, and maybe Crystal, you'd start if you don't mind today. I'd like you to tell us, what do you think makes you and Seth a kick-ass couple?
We're kick-ass in so many different ways. I mean, from having so much in common and to do everything together, and the passion that we have in our relationship, and the fun that we have in our relationship. I mean, everything about it is kick-ass.
That's great. I'd love to hear it. How about you, Seth? What do you think makes you guys kick-ass?
Yeah, I mean, it really is just a complete other next level of compatibility on everything. We are very fortunate that we found each other because we're just naturally on the same page with everything. So it just alleviates a lot of normal conflict that you see in marriages. We just don't deal with. Some of it's very intentional, but some of it is just really naturally and organic. We just don't have the conflict because we are so compatible.
That's great.
Intentionality goes a long way as well, doesn't it? I love hearing that because so many of us aren't in our relationships. So when we are intentional, we get to reap the benefit of that. I want to go backward a little bit before we go forward about your relationship, because I really believe that we can be the product of those who raised us, and that we bring a lot of our history into our present relationship. And so, Seth, I would love to hear from you first. What did love look like when you were growing up as a child? How was it expressed?
Um, I was raised an only child. My parents weren't the best example of love. They My mother felt really trapped most of her marriage. My father was very controlling and very my way or the highway type of mentality. And so my mother finally had enough of that when I was about 15, 16 years old. And that was the end of it. Now, doesn't mean there weren't signs of affection and good moments and things like that. But I really kind of took what I saw as people can learn from good and bad examples. I'm one of those people that I can see a bad example and say, yeah, I don't want to do that. Other people see that bad example and they say, this is why I am the way I am. I'm kind of the opposite of that. So that was kind of what I was exposed to growing up.
How about you, Crystal? What did love look like? How was that expressed in your household when you were younger?
Um, so my parents were pretty affectionate towards each other. I would say, unfortunately, I think that my mom was more loved loved my dad more than he loved her. She's now passed, and he has moved on and is in a new marriage, which he has completely changed and treats his new wife the way that she should be treated. And I think that I think unfortunately for me, like, and probably a lot of people, I wasn't able to see my parents experience like what we have here. And but now I'm happy that my dad is happy and able to experience a love like what we have too.
Of course. And so now that you and Seth are together, has it been difficult for you to bring some of those I guess the question is, did you have some baggage when you came to your relationship with Seth from your parents? And if you did you have to work through that?
I don't think I had baggage from my parents. I think that I think that, like Seth, I am a person that learns from other people's mistakes, or because my parents were very good about telling me and my sister to not do the bad stuff that they did throughout their life. I mean, they got married at a very young age, or well, they got pregnant first, then got married, and then at a very very young age, and so they always were, really good about telling us, don't do what we did and don't make the same mistakes that we did. And so I really did take that as, I'm not going to make those mistakes. And so I don't really think that I came with that kind of baggage. And I think that from my previous relationship, I learned a whole heck of a lot. And I think I made those mistakes in that relationship.
And that's really been one of our big talking points in teaching things is we've made the same mistakes in that everybody makes in marriages. We just made it in our last marriage and relationship, not in this one. So we were grown up by the time we found each other, and all the bad habits never got formed. We made all those mistakes previously. So, unfortunately, for the last relationships, obviously those didn't work out. But fortunately, we did learn from all those mistakes and just have not replicated them in our own marriage.
Sure. What do you think? Can you guys share? What do you think some of the things that you learned from the past relationships that you've done differently in this one that have allowed you all to have that success that you're sharing with us today?
I think it's funny because we joke about it, but we're pretty we mean it when we say it. It really was finding for us. It was kind of almost solidifying what we already thought about our last relationships. That it sounds awful that we weren't the problem; it was them. So I think we were a lot more selective after those relationships on what we wanted. But as far as the mistakes that were made before, I think a lot of it was, and I know she can answer for herself as well. But from the experiences we had, we knew that we didn't have boundaries in the last relationships, whether that was communication boundaries, it was simple stuff like just not knowing what other people wanted out of life, wanted out of marriage, wanted out of social life. We came into this as, my ex-wife wanted to go out and run around with her girlfriends and go on trips to Vegas and go do all of these things without me. So that was a huge, like, I don't want you to do that. I didn't want her to do that. And she knew what I went through with that, and she doesn't behave like that. She doesn't want to do those things. And so I think that really just knowing what we didn't like out of the last relationship and what we felt were very big pain points, that was on the list of, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. Whenever we're back out there finding each other. And once again, those lists just jived very, very well together.
Mm-hmm. I think also for me, I think that I learned how to. I was very impatient with my ex, and probably rightfully so in some ways, but in others, it's like, okay, maybe I didn't have to be so mean, but and he's just easy to deal with. Um, thank God. But I think that yeah, I learned more patience, to be more patient, and I don't need a whole lot of patience with him though. But I also learned that kind of to put myself in his shoes. So, how would I feel if that was going on? And it doesn't even, and it's really nothing that we have done in our relationship, but I think about stuff that I did in my previous relationship where I was like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I would never do that to him. Like why was I so, uh, you know, I don't know, just even like going, I don't know, out with the girls or whatever. And um I wouldn't want to do that to Seth.
Mhm.
And I think even like with cleaning, okay, so for instance, I would get on to my ex about how he cleaned the house, and he was trying to help out, but he wasn't doing it right. So, like I would never tell Seth, "You're not doing it right." Like
That's the difference. I do it right.
I don't.
You don't need to.
I mean, and that's what's just so funny about our current relationship is we people think we make it. We don't fight. We don't argue. We don't disagree. We don't give each other the silent treatment. It is, our motto is good relationships don't take hard work, and our relationship is just effortless. Doesn't mean that we just throw in the towel and are on cruise control, but everything we do is to please the other one and just naturally. And so it makes everything effortless. So
It doesn't feel forced.
yeah. And so we don't have nothing fights. We don't have where's the peanut butter? I can't find the peanut butter. Where'd you put it this time? All those little nothing fights that couples typically have are just for us a non-issue, because of how we are.
Yeah, it sounds like you both have learned how to wade through a lot of the unnecessaries, and been there, done that. Hey, we're not doing this again. So you take your intentionality combined with the fact that you each worked hard to make sure you're equally yoked in the relationship that you have, and that's beautiful when that happens. And it kind of naturally leads into, we have 14 pillars that we talk about, and 3 of those pillars are what we call the 3 C's, which is commitment, communication, and conflict resolution. So I'd love to hear, Seth, what does commitment look like in your relationship with Crystal?
Yeah, I mean, commitment. It's once again, it's part of the makeup. It's part of the DNA of the relationship that we have. It's not something that is really thought of intentionally because it is naturally there. I think that commitment for us is obviously to one another, where we're not going to let outside distractors or anything like that falter that, to maintain that continuity of commitment. But it's also being there from the standpoint of commitment of a supportive level. It's commitment of seeing things through together, helping each other get through things together. It really is just at every angle, by your side and behind your back to help you get through these things or do these things with you. So it really is just all encompassing, in the relationship.
Sure. How about you, Crystal? What is commitment? When you think of that between you and Seth, what are some of the thoughts that you had?
I mean, I think it's being there for each other, and through like, because like for us, we don't have hard times. We have we don't okay, we don't have hard times that we put on each other.
They're not self-induced.
Yeah, there's hard times in life. There's death. There's other stuff that can come up, but we are there, and we are there for each other through all of that, and we're not going to be um something negative when there's so much other negativity in the world. That this is my person, and I'm committed to him forever.
Are you tired of feeling like you're living with a roommate instead of a lover? Do you miss the days when you were completely into each other, intellectually, emotionally, and physically? The truth is, many couples are struggling behind closed doors. Putting on a brave face for the rest of the world is exhausting. If you want to get back your joy, return to thriving, and take pleasure in your marriage, then Kickass Couples Coaching and Matthew P. Hoffman are here to help. Join us alone or with your partner and start taking steps towards overcoming the pain-filled obstacles and improving your relationship right now. For a limited time, we're offering a free relationship assessment call. Go to matthewphoffman.com/coaching to book your free call now so you can start making real changes in your most important relationship today. Right. Forever is a big word for a lot of people. And I think it's hard to make that step. But when you do it, it pays off in spades because you're sending the message that there's nothing and no one else that you're with or behind. And that kind of gives you, I think it's really freeing. Some people say, wow, that kind of commitment is restrictive. But I would say that kind of commitment's freeing because when you know that you and your partner both have that same commitment to each other, it opens you up to try new things and go on new adventures without worrying. Are they with me? Do they think the same thing? And they can think I'm weird. Can they survive? And all those kinds of questions. So it sounds like you guys have done a great job of removing the questions and moving forward in that confidence of how you each feel about one
Yeah. And there's no plan B. That's, that this is it. So,
The second of our three C's is communication. And communication can either make or break a relationship, as we well know. And so I'd love to hear, how have you mastered communication in your relationship, Seth?
Communication is one of those things where a lot of people, it's one of the most cliche things that everybody says. Communication is key. You can't have anything without communication. And a lot of people really think they're very good at communication. They even think I thought that with my last relationship. I was like, we talked all the time and we communicated, and I put talking and communicating in the same category. We believe that there has to be communication for a reason and with a resolve, and that communication has to be an there has to be intentional communication, but there has to be natural communication as well. And Crystal and I, there's literally no topic that is off the table. It is just us. I have a grown son he just turned 24 years old. He and his girlfriend have their own house, so it's just us, which is how we like it. And we literally communicate all the time. We discuss everything. We talk about current events, past events, our future together. We communicate about things that are bothering us. I don't, since we don't really bother each other, I don't have to call somebody, whether it's a friend or my mom or my son, and complain about her. And she does the same with me. We we just really do treat everything as an open book, and there's just nothing off limits. Whether we're talking about sex, whether we're talking about fun trips, whatever it is. I travel for my work. We're actually heading to Hot Springs, Arkansas this week, and we will sit in the car for 4 hours driving there, and we will talk. Who knows about what? We will talk the entire time. We're not just quiet. And I think some of it is I probably like the sound of my own voice, so I communicate. But it really is just true open communication about anything and everything that one of us has.
How about for you, Crystal? Would you add anything to that?
I mean, I you said it perfectly, but I mean, yeah, open communication about everything and the right type of communication, I think. Because and people, like he said, people will talk or whatever, or they'll fight, and that's not communicating. That's not being, gosh, what word am I looking for? That you're not going anywhere if you're gonna just keep fighting. You're just gonna keep going back and forth. But yeah, the right type of communication, I guess.
Well, anybody that's been in a relationship, I know that you all are well suited for each other, but there seem to be conflicts that pop up every now and then, and it's not really if you're going to deal with them, it's how. And so I'm curious, Seth, when you guys have any kind of a conflict or a disagreement, how do you process and face that so it doesn't have a negative impact on your relationship?
I think that even when we make the statement that we don't argue and we don't fight, it doesn't mean that those things couldn't come up. So it's a very proactive approach. Anything that we see that is heading down the pipe that may cause a conflict down the road is let's resolve it before it is a conflict. Whether that's somebody's coming to visit, whether we're going to be going to, I don't know, taking a trip somewhere where we're going to be around somebody I don't want to see or whatever that is. Let's talk about it. Let's strategize it. Let's discuss it. Let's figure out what we can do so it never ends in a fight. So that we're not fighting with each other just because the problem is the reason for the potential argument. So it really is just taking that proactive approach and having that foresight. We don't do anything with hindsight. Obviously, you can't avoid that 100% of the time, but we really do go into every situation of weighing it out. I'm a little more, I guess, ideological with a lot of those approaches where I look at everything from different angles. I kind of like a better plan and structure with things. She's very just goes with the flow. And so that is one of the big things that we don't have in common, but it is one of those true kind of balances. And so because of that, I see the conflicts coming. She sees the conflicts coming, and we discuss it right then and there and talk about it and say, hey, what is this? And that way we feel more like it's us against the conflict instead of the conflict being a wedge, creating a disagreement between the two of us.
Can you think of a time that you had a serious conflict that you had to work through? And tell us how you work through it.
For us, not. Can you think of anything? I mean, I know that we had. I mean, it really wasn't even a conflict. There was a potential big future issue based on a personal,
Oh gosh, yeah,
family situation that she had that I just put it on the table and we talked about it.
We talked about it.
It was
and that's
fine.
The thing, and it, like again with the communication piece, before that, that's what is like for us, like him saying us being proactive about it and talking about it, making sure that if we're not on the same page, how do we come to that agreement, or what do we have to do to talk it through. And really, I mean, with that specific issue, I guess it could have been
it could have been a problem, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it was it was a tough conversation for him to bring up to me. And so I mean, I just listened, and I understood where he was coming from, and I don't know. We just
and you hit on a good thing. We listening was a huge. I should have brought that up on the communication answer. It's that is that two-way piece. It's being a good listener, and it's giving your partner the chance to communicate to you by closing your mouth and listening to what they have to say and processing what they have to say instead of trying to think of what your response is going to be immediately. Soaking in what they have to say, and that's what we did with that. And that was before we even got engaged or anything. But yeah, as far as, like I said, we just, there's not a whole lot that just pops up that would ever drive a wedge between us.
When it comes to, so we've talked about 3 pillars so far, but we have 11 other pillars. I don't know if you all have that accessible or in front of you, of what our pillars are.
Yeah, we did look at them, and I have them. We don't have them up on the computer though while we're recording.
No worries. So what I can do is I'll go through them with you. I'd like you to listen. And when I say them, I'd like you to think about which pillar jumps out at you or do you think is important, and I would love to know why. We have trust and honesty, patience, intimacy, lasting love, selflessness, unity, servant leadership, faith and moral code, appreciation, security, and fun and humor. So, Seth, as I read some of those out, is there one that strikes you that says, wow, this is important to me, or something that I think is essential in a relationship, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll say intimacy. That I believe that maybe not all of those, but I believe that if intimacy is a good part of your foundation, a lot of the other stuff will kind of fall into place. I feel I think you're going to get the long lasting relationship and the long lasting love from that. I think you're going to get trust from that. I think that a lot of that's going to kind of naturally evolve from that level of intimacy, and we always use the word passion. The passion needs to be there too, because intimacy can mean more than just sex. But we on that list, I would definitely relate the intimacy to more of the sexual side of it, and I think that if that's in place, that a lot of those things really just kind of happen probably a little more organically, and it makes everything else feel less forced. And I think especially for a lot of men, um, I believe that most men would put that at the top, and stereotypically for women, it's not. And once again, it's equally important to her. So I think that intimacy is going to be my big answer on that one.
Sure.
And intimacy can change over time, right? The longer we've been together, it might look a little different. What do you do to keep it strong?
It's I don't know. What is the answer? Well, I think part of it is
We continue to
yeah
we don't. It's a priority.
yeah
It's a priority in our relationship.
yeah
But not. I say that it's a priority, but it's not. It's not like it's forced.
yeah. It's not
either.
like, hey, it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's time
Yeah.
to. It's not like that either. It is just it's a major part of our relationship. It's a big key ingredient as to why we don't fight, why we are so easy to get along with one another, why it really is the main nourishment for the relationship, and I think that we just don't allow the dry spells to take place. Once again, organically, that just kind of happens. I think a big piece of it is we physically bring the best version of ourselves to each other. Uh, I want to look like somebody that she wants to be intimate with, and she's the same with me. And so we make our physical being and our sexuality just a big priority in the relationship.
Great. And Crystal, is there any of those qualities that jumped out to you besides the ones we've talked about that you think are important or that are particularly meaningful to you?
I think that. Well, I think fun and humor, and I think unity. I think unity is a really good one. Um, and I think like for us, everybody everybody knows us as Seth and Crystal. We are That's us. We're a unit, and so I think that when couples don't have that, I think that it's a problem, and I think that they tend to, I guess, kind of almost put a wedge between themselves just by not being having unity with each other.
We always say we're synonymous with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And to her point, that's, I mean, like with my job, everybody knows who she is. I do sales, I meet clients, there's state organizations I work with regularly, and she's in tow with me everywhere I go, and that's 100% due to the fact that we just want to spend all of our time together. I work with guys that they would never ever take their wife on a trip because that's their break from their wife and their kids. We don't need that break. We don't look for that break, and so being that one big strong unit is huge. Yeah.
Are you struggling to maintain the emotional and physical intimacy you once shared? Do you feel like you're spending more energy finding fault and tearing your partner down instead of magnifying their good and building them up? Don't worry, you're not alone. Many couples are struggling behind a forced smile and an inauthentic happiness. You feel drained, unheard, and more often than not, unappreciated. The good news is it's not too late to rekindle the flame and strengthen your bond. I'm offering a free relationship assessment call to help you take the first step towards revitalizing your relationship and reaching your own relationship nirvana. Whether you come alone or with your partner, I'm here to help you create the space for a more fulfilling and satisfying relationship. Don't wait any longer. Make the changes you need to thrive. Book your free call today at matthewphoffman.com/coaching. And let's get started on your journey to a kick-ass relationship. Great examples.
We all like to be loved and appreciated, right? So how do you show love and appreciation for each other? Can you give me some examples?
We're big on gift giving, just
giving.
little random. Oh, here's a not necessarily. I mean, do I do the flowers and stuff? Yes, but random. Oh yeah, she saw a T-shirt. Here's a Dolly Parton T-shirt with a cute little
Dolly Parton,
little Dolly Parton
doll or
little
Funko
toy
Pop.
thing, and or whatever she may be into, and just keeping kind of a keen eye for those things and giving those spontaneous little gifts here and there. And we both equally do it for each other. It's funny because we won't think about it, talk about it, and one day a package will show up and she's like, "Here, I got you this because I figured you'd like it. I was thinking about you." And then I know, well, tomorrow she's getting one of those gifts from me as well. So we do that. I think a lot of it is really, once again, naturally being kind of proactive with one another and not waiting for the other one to ask for anything. We do those from simple daily things of, oh my gosh, your glass is empty. Do you want another drink? To, oh, hey, I saw that, the bed wasn't made. I went ahead and made it. And not from a scorekeeping perspective either. Well, I did this today. And you didn't do this. And so we don't do that. If I do that, it's because I'm teasing her and it's intentional. But yeah, it's really just, keeping your eyes and ears open all the time. We compliment one another always. I mean, daily. I tell her, every day how pretty she looks. And it's not that, okay, well, oh shoot, it's 2 p.m. I haven't told her how pretty she is. It will literally just be, I catch her walking out of the bathroom, or I see her and I'm like, oh, man, you look really pretty today. And that kind of ties into bringing the best version of ourselves to each other too. So we verbally voice it, but then we show it.
Well, and we like, I don't know how many times a week I say, "I'm so happy you're my husband." Like that we just naturally just say it. Mm-hmm. And I know that for some couples, I think that would feel weird to say that, but it doesn't feel weird.
And that was the thing. We didn't learn that stuff. It did not exist in our last relationships, and it wasn't even at the time something we thought we were missing in those relationships. It really was just, born out of the two of us being together.
Yeah. Well, gratitude and appreciation, when you're expressing them, you can't be fearful and angry. So it's kind of, so the more you're doing that positive, it's just giving more oxygen and life blood to the relationship. And I think a lot of people miss that if they think it's weird that I tell my wife that she looks great often, because she does, but she knows I mean it. And I'm noticing, is that something new, or have you had that before? Or, wow, that you really look good in that color, or whatever it might be. And it's sincere. And so it gives oxygen. And then it means that we're focusing on what's right and good, as opposed to what didn't they do and what's wrong and how come they didn't. And so I think it really changes our focus a lot. And I'd love to know, Crystal, if you had to go back to your unmarried self and put your hands on your unmarried self's shoulders and say, here's the one piece of advice that I'm going to give you, what do you think that would be?
Oh, gosh. I don't know.
We'll let you think about that. I'm going to ask Seth the same question while you're thinking. Seth, if you go to your unmarried self and say, here's the one thing you need to know, what would that be?
Never compromise your happiness. That would be my big.
Good. Mm-hmm.
And tell me about that, meaning doing things good enough as opposed to things that are the best or right, or what do you mean by that?
I think that when I say it, what I mean is hitting a point in a whether a dead end relationship or a dying relationship where you're just you're not happy. Nobody's happy in those relationships. You're not, and it doesn't happen overnight. You just kind of gradually get there, but then it feels like it's overnight because you're like, what happened? Why do I feel this way? And then when you hit that point, a lot of times we convince ourselves that, well, this is how it's supposed to be. This is what a normal marriage is. That, well, this is what happens when you have a wife and you have kids, and you work and you make a living and you're plugging along. This is just it, and so you accept it, but you don't realize you don't have to accept it. So that's what I really mean by it is don't you don't have to accept that, and don't compromise your happiness for anything. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be times where you're not going to be able to happy. It doesn't mean that you still shouldn't sacrifice for your partner. Um, but we tell people quite often that you know being happy is sometimes reason enough to walk away from a bad situation.
I think, and like for level with him saying that, I was the one to leave my previous relationship. I was the one that decided that I wasn't happy, and I didn't want to be in that bad, awful situation anymore. And so, like, I don't know. I'm like, I feel like I made all the right decisions in this marriage, in this relationship. I 100% made all the right decisions.
And
But
my ex left me. I was the one that was miserable. I was the one that wasn't getting any affection. I was the one that was just tucked away in the corner, not getting anything out of the relationship at all. And she's still the one that left me. So I was being on that side of it was what I think one of the reasons why I probably try to preach that strong message to other guys is, because there's plenty of men that find themselves in that same situation, and you don't have to be stuck there.
mhm.
Sure.
Is there anything we haven't asked you yet that we should have asked? Anything you would like to share with our listeners? You guys are in this as well as we are, helping couples and relationships. And is there anything that you all do that you believe our listeners should hear?
Yeah, I mean, I think from our perspective, we've always been a little, I guess, unorthodox and raw with it based on our own experiences. When we decided to get into this, it really just came about naturally from how often we talked. And one of the things that happened several years ago is we started doing the podcasting in 2018. Was we just found ourselves talking all the time about other people's relationships. People would come to us and talk to us and ask us, "Oh, hey, I'm getting married. I know you've gone through this, or you and Crystal seem very happy." And anybody that knows us knows that we
That's
don't
all.
fake it, and we're not putting on a show, and that we're affectionate to one another all the time, and that we do really walk the walk and talk the talk. But we just found ourselves communicating so much about other relationships. We were like, do we have something here? Why are we not having the problems they are? Why are they getting divorced? Why are they separated? Why are they not having sex? Why do they hate each other? Why does she always talk trash about him at a party? Why? And we were just seeing all of these things, and then we realized, well, that's the quote unquote normal marriage, and we were like, well, ours isn't like that. Does that mean we're abnormal? Then why is abnormal bad? If what we have is so much better than what they have, then normal's bad. We don't want a normal marriage, and we just kind of came to that point of maybe there's a message worth communicating out there that says you can stay in a normal marriage until you die. You can be in a normal marriage, and we use our own families as examples. My grandparents hated each other. I mean, the worst thing about both of them passing was I told my mom that one of them only got like 16 months of peace and quiet from the other one in heaven. So, I mean, but they did not get along. They butted heads. They slept in separate rooms. She had similar experience with her grandparents, and we were ingrained that longevity meant success. And we are like, that can't be the only measurement of a successful marriage, because that's not the marriage I want. I don't want to be like that when I'm 70. I don't want to be like that when I'm 80. I don't want to be like that now, and I am. So how can we change that? And so I think that it was really just from observation and experience hitting a point, and that just kind of led to and really not pulling any punches and diving into some things that you know really drawing a line in the sand. You shouldn't have friends of the opposite sex. You shouldn't, and so we were comfortable saying this is how we feel about this. The proof that this works is because this is what we do. And right, wrong, or indifferent, it works for us. That's why we tell everybody it may not work for you. But we think if you really put forth the effort and do those things, and still at the end of the day, the guy's not me and the girl's not her.
Well, normal doesn't have to be unhappy longevity, right?
Or boring or passionless.
It doesn't have, right.
We're not settling. I think, that's something we talked about is settling, right? And if, you do have to be paired right. I mean, if you're with the wrong person, you can do everything, quote unquote, right or textbook, and it's not going to make the relationship one for the ages. It's still not going to be right. So that decision and really and I think the fact that you all had the conversations, I'd say this is what I had, this is definitely not what I want. So you had that context. A lot of people don't have that context and they make the wrong decision. I mean, maybe before your first relationship, I think my wife was in a relationship before me and I wasn't, but we had a lot of those conversations. What do you want? What don't you want? I mean, we talked about faith. We talked about spirituality. We talked
everything.
I heard a lot of what was wrong with her first marriage and why she was sensitive to coming into this one. And I was the opposite of a lot of those qualities. So having those conversations early on, hopefully before you're married, makes a huge difference and continuing to have them because we change, as careers and lives and bodies. We're not going to always have those 6-pack abs, Seth, and be Greek Adonises. And, it's just going to happen. We can work hard and stay healthy, but, life's change and we need to change with them and keep having those conversations. It sounds like you guys did a great job of making sure you were on the right footing when you came together.
Yeah. And I was kind of in a similar boat as Kim, where it was, I knew what I really didn't want out of the next relationship. And I was really guarded with her. I kept waiting for, in my first marriage, I was married for 12 years and I felt that I was duped. I felt that I fell in love with someone and that's not who I married. And that was revealed very, very early on. And then it was like, okay, well, I guess this is what I have to deal with. But so because of that, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop with her. Like, well, when is she going to start bitching at me? When is she going to start complaining? When is she going to stop sleeping with me? When is she going to start picking nothing fights? I kept waiting for all of these bad actions that I dealt with before to happen, and they never did. And at first I was kind of like, she's really good at keeping this up. And then I realized it wasn't that's how she was. So.
Well, you guys have been fantastic with your time and sharing your experience. We're so grateful. If people want to learn more about you or find you, where should they look?
Yeah, I mean, we're Marriage on the Rocks, play on words, because we have a nice alcoholic beverage every podcast. And we're everywhere. We're on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook. You can find us on all the platforms, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, everywhere. We have a pretty decent following on Facebook. We make a lot of funny little videos that really have nothing to do with the podcast, but they're fun to do. So yeah, Marriage on the Rocks on everything. At Marriage on the Rocks, you'll find us.
Terrific.
Thank you for your authenticity and for showing up for us today and for our listeners. We are grateful.
It's fun to be with you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yes,
we enjoyed
so much.
Take care.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.